Keeping your website up to date and performing at peak proficiency can seem like a trivial task. I mean, once a website is launched, doesn't it just continue to perform the exact same way as it did the day it was launched? The answer is no. And I'm going to tell you in this episode why. Hey, I'm Martin Harvey, and you're watching Harvey & Co. TV, a show where I help entrepreneurs master their marketing so they can reach the highest levels of their professional potential. Subscribe and get ready to put your marketing into perspective. Imagine your website is a bright green lily pad floating in a pond. Although it has a long stem anchor it to the soil below the surface of the water, doesn't mean that it's safe from the water's elements, protected from animals, or always perfectly positioned to grow. Sometimes a tree grows and blocks the view of the sun. The day your website is launched, your lily pad is placed in that pond and exposed to the elements. And it's up to us to ensure we're keeping those trees from growing too high and keeping those animals from taking a big bite out of our leaves. We do this through something called website maintenance. Website maintenance is the process of actively checking to ensure that your website is healthy and performing well, and fixing issues as they arise, because they definitely will arise. It includes performing security updates and keeping that website content fresh, and checking for broken links, images, and pages. For clients of mine who are on website care, which is just a fancy name for a website maintenance plan, we focus on the top 45 issues that generally affect websites. It includes the absolute basics and what I believe are the most critical, such as broken link checks, which is making sure that when someone clicks on a button or a link on your website, it actually goes where it's supposed to. Broken image checks, which is making sure all of the right images show up correctly. 400 and 500 error checks, which is checking for server and hosting issues. SSL Certificate checks, which is making sure the first line of the defense against hackers is working. XML sitemap checks, which is important for SEO. Robot file checks, which is also important for SEO, and screen test checks, which is making sure that the website loads on all of your devices correctly. These are the main things we focus on because if any issues occur here, then it can affect how your potential buyers do business with you and engage with your brand. We also look at things that may not be red flags right now, but are slow burning issues that could turn into red flags later on. These things include things like SEO crawling issues, which means Google and other search engines are having trouble scanning your website sometimes or all the time. Google Search Console Performance Check, which is how your website is performing on Google. Remember, bad information in means wrong information out. And we want to make sure that the data that you're using to make critical marketing decisions is actually correct data. Google Business Checks, which is just making sure that Google Business is working. Google Analytics Checks, which is checking to make sure we're gathering the correct data from the website. And this can actually break more than you would think, and if you're not paying attention, you may not even realize it for several months. Domain and hosting renewal dates, which is making sure your hosting is up to date and is set to automatic renewal. And 301 redirects, which is making sure that your website is directing to the correct version of your website. When issues start to arise here, we know that there could be deeper issues that need to be investigated because these issues rarely occur by themselves. After we look at these issues, we look at the things that don't affect the way your potential buyers are interacting with your brand, and they're not slow burning issues, but are issues that are just below what we believe a standard of a website should perform. These include things like website speed tests, which is how fast your website loads on mobile and desktop. Website compression tests, which is how optimized your website is and to perform. Code error tests, which is blocking code that could lead to issues later on. Optimized images, making sure your website images are compressed and optimized for all devices. Valid URLs, which is making sure there's no underscores in your URLs. Browser caching, which is making sure your website is caching on the browser, which increases your website speed. and meta descriptions, which is making sure the descriptions that appear on Google look good and are correct. The goal of website maintenance is to ensure that the website has the best possible opportunity to grow on the internet. However, it's not meant to actively grow your website. Only you can do this by marketing your business, creating marketing funnels, and being active on things like social media. Website maintenance is there to make sure when people actually come to your website from those marketing efforts that they have a pleasant experience on your website and there are no issues that would prevent them from purchasing your product. Other things you can do to keep your website fresh is to keep your content and images up to date. If you have a 10-year-old image on your website that hasn't been updated, then it's time to take some fresh images and put them on there. If you have some articles that you wrote years ago but are not relevant to your product or service, then that needs to be updated and you need to revisit that maybe with a content marketing specialist. Finally, I want to touch on website security. If you don't have an SSL certificate on the website, you definitely need one. In the current environment, it's absolutely essential that you encrypt your connection your potential buyers have with your website. SSL certificates protect your customers' credit card information, usernames, passwords, and other sensitive information. You usually can purchase these from your hosting provider, and most of the time they will even set it up for you. So not sure if you have an SSL certificate? Go to your website and look at the URL bar at the top. Does the URL have an HTTPS in front of it? And if you're on Google Chrome, you might see a little green lock symbol in front of your URL. If you don't have these, then you need to check with your hosting provider to ensure your website has an SSL certificate and it's secure. I hope you found these tips helpful, and if you have any questions about website maintenance, feel free to drop the question in the comments below if you're watching on YouTube. Or you can DM me on Instagram or Facebook at Martin Harvey & Co. I personally manage these accounts and I would love to hear from you. Give this video a like so more people like you can find it, and subscribe so you'll get notified the next time I drop a new episode of Harvey & Co TV. I'll see you next time.